This is the story of a country that was never supposed to survive. Imagine a tiny island with no natural resources, no oil, no farmland, no fresh water. Suddenly, it's kicked out of its own country, left completely alone. Unemployment is soaring, ethnic tensions are boiling over, and it's surrounded by neighbors who aren't exactly friendly. To most people, this place looked like a historical mistake, a failed state just waiting to collapse. Yet, in just a few decades, that same island transformed itself into one of the richest countries on Earth. Today, the average citizen there earns more than the average American. This is the unbelievable story of Singapore. So how did a place with nothing become a global powerhouse? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. For centuries, Singapore was just a quiet fishing village. It had no wealth, no influence, and no reason for the world to notice it. That all changed in 1819 when a British official named Stamford Raffles saw something everyone else had missed. Location, location, location. Singapore sat right at the choke point of a narrow sea passage connecting the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea. Any ship sailing between Europe, India, and China had to pass right by. It was the perfect spot for global trade. Under British rule, Singapore became a major trading port almost overnight. Merchants flocked in, workers arrived from China, India, and the Malay world. The population exploded, money flowed, and Singapore became one of Britain's most valuable assets in Asia. But this illusion of security wouldn't last. During World War II, the British believed Singapore was an impenetrable fortress. They built massive naval guns facing the sea, convinced any attack would come from the ocean. The problem: the Japanese didn't come from the sea. They came through the jungle, from the north. In a shocking defeat, the island fell in just a few days. Winston Churchill called it the worst military disaster in British history. For the people of Singapore, the Japanese occupation was brutal. Food was scarce, violence was common, and tens of thousands died. But something else happened during those years. The myth of British invincibility was shattered. When the war ended and the British returned, they found a very different population. The people had survived hardship on their own. They had seen the empire fall, and they no longer believed they needed foreign rulers. The call for independence grew stronger and stronger. Eventually, a compromise was reached. Singapore would merge with its neighbors to form a new country, Malaysia. On paper, it made perfect sense. Singapore would get land and resources, and Malaysia would get Singapore's economic strength. In reality, it was a disaster. The marriage failed almost immediately. Singapore was majority Chinese, while Malaysia's leadership was largely Malay. Their political visions clashed. Singapore's leader, Lee Kuan Yew, pushed for a Malaysian Malaysia, where all ethnic groups were treated equally. But the central government favored policies that prioritized ethnic Malays. Economic disputes and tariffs followed. Then came the riots. Tensions exploded on the streets. People were killed, and the relationship became toxic. Finally, in 1965, Malaysia made a drastic decision. They expelled Singapore from the Federation. Overnight, Singapore became an independent country against its will. Lee Kuan Yew went on national television and broke down in tears. Not from joy, but from pure terror. Singapore had no resources, no military, no water supply, and no guarantee it would survive even a few years. But in that moment of desperation, Lee understood something critical. There was no backup plan. Singapore either had to succeed or it would simply disappear from the map. So, Lee Kuan Yew and his government got to work, turning every single weakness into a strategy. First problem: water. Singapore was dangerously dependent on water piped in from Malaysia. To fix this, the government launched an aggressive plan. They built reservoirs everywhere, designed systems to collect rainwater from rooftops, and invested heavily in desalination and water recycling. Singapore was determined to never be held hostage by thirst again. Second problem: jobs. The British were pulling their military bases out, which meant thousands of jobs were about to vanish. While other developing countries were closing themselves off, Singapore did the exact opposite. It opened its doors completely. The government promised foreign companies zero tolerance for corruption, low taxes, and a strong rule of law. It positioned itself as the safe and efficient bridge between the East and the West, and global businesses started to take notice. Third problem: housing. Most of the population lived in overcrowded, unsanitary slums. The government launched one of the most ambitious public housing programs in history. But instead of just giving homes away, they made them affordable for people to buy. Through mandatory savings accounts, citizens could purchase their own government-built apartments. People became homeowners. They gained stability and a real stake in their nation's future. Within a generation, the slums were gone. Fourth problem: education. If Singapore had no natural resources, its people had to become the resource. Education became the top priority. Schools were built rapidly. English was made the main language of instruction, a neutral language for business that united the different ethnic groups while students also learned their mother tongues. It was a controversial decision, but it created a highly skilled, globally competitive workforce. Fifth and final problem: defense. Singapore was tiny, with no army and hostile neighbors. The solution was simple but bold. Everyone would defend the country. Mandatory military service was introduced for all able-bodied men. The goal was to make Singapore a poisonous shrimp, small, but too costly and painful to swallow. Within years, they built one of the most advanced militaries in the region. And the results? The policies worked better than anyone could have imagined. By the 1970s and 80s, multinational corporations were flooding in. The port became one of the busiest on Earth. The economy grew at an astonishing rate. Singapore went from a struggling post-colonial island to a global financial hub. Of course, this success came with strict control. The government enforced tough laws, limited political opposition, and tightly managed the media. Critics called it authoritarian. Lee Kuan Yew's response was simple: order first, prosperity first. Everything else comes later. Within a single generation, Singapore surpassed its former colonial ruler in per capita income. Slums were replaced by pristine high-rise neighborhoods. Crime rates plummeted. The infrastructure became world-class. When Lee Kuan Yew passed away in 2015, the nation mourned a leader who had taken a country everyone thought was doomed and proved them all wrong. Today, Singapore faces new challenges: an aging population, rising costs, and the pressures of a changing world. The question is no longer about survival. It's about whether this unique model can adapt for the future. But one thing is certain. The story of Singapore proves that a lack of resources does not mean a lack of destiny. Sometimes, success isn't about what you have, it's about what you do when you have nothing left to lose. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as incredible as I do, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more videos. See you next time.